David, good morning, good afternoon. Where are you, David? Sorry, I can't hear you. You're muted. My mistake. I won't bother you while you're driving.
Sorry, I said I'm in Seattle, Washington. Yeah, I'm
Seattle.
driving,
Okay,
so
great. Good
I'll
morning to
listen
you.
in. Thank you.
Just take a moment to let a couple others hop on. Lori, where are you located again, please?
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto. That's right. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And where are you, David?
I'm Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
Chirag and I are right next door.
Ah, got it.
Yep.
How long have you known Chirag?
Almost 10 years.
Okay.
Yep. We first met when he became a student in my leadership program.
Ah, okay.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey, David. How's it going?
Nice to see you. How you doing?
You too. I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. Yeah, we first met when he joined a leadership program that I do called Leadership Westchester. It's a 10-month leadership program, very deep dive into who you are, what you want in your life, and how you can get it. And so we got to know each other there, and we stayed in touch. And when he started the business, he said, "David, join me because I know a lot of these people can use your stuff, please." And I said, "Great, I'll come along."
Great.
So we've been doing it ever since. So Daniel and I know each other from some of our previous stuff, and so, since we started, I was facilitating the mastermind program with Chirag. We're co-facilitating that for a couple of years. And I've coached a lot of folks individually, of course, and I've been doing various calls over the last 4 years.
Nice.
Various CSC audiences. So I might as well get started. So thanks for being here today. Let me ask, just as long as you both are here, why did you sign up for this leadership series of sessions? Lori, what can you say?
Okay. I'll kick it off. I was interested because I have someone who joined our team about almost 3 years ago, and now I have another person, and I just felt that I started finding myself like reading books about teams, and we have kind of a different structure than some other teams, and so I just wanted to learn more about best practices from other team leaders and what's worked for them versus going through trial and error on my own.
All right, got it. It's a good reason. Thank you. How about you, Daniel?
I'm always open to hear and learn more about how other people are having their team work together. Well, David, when we first met, I think my team was 14. It's been through a huge evolution where I'm no longer with a co-principal, so I'm a sole decision maker for the team. And it's gotten big, it's gotten small. So right now I'm down at a group of about 5. But just kind of like restructuring over the last couple of months and trying to figure out what makes the most sense for me to keep that team moving forward.
Yep, got it. All right, makes perfect sense. Thanks. Well, you're in the right place. Leadership is a beast that requires constant learning, thought, reflection, growing. It's a little different from management, which is a little bit more kind of steady. Like we know how to manage ourselves as a salesperson, or we know how to manage certain things on a team. You have to have certain meetings and you have to have certain tools to share information like Business Tracker or something like that. And you manage those things in certain ways, CRMs, et cetera. But leadership is a different kind of a thing. And it requires us to ask a whole lot of other questions like, where do we need to be 2 years from today? And what do we need to be doing today to get there? Right? That's a question that's not typically asked, for example, if someone is simply managing things rather than leading. And when you're leading a team, of course, you run into all kinds of the vagaries of how human beings interact with each other and what they think is right, what they think is wrong, personal animosities, emotion, a whole bunch of stuff obviously comes into it that you have to manage somehow, you have to deal with. So I'm delighted that you're here to think about these things. For the others who we can't see, feel free to pipe up later if there's anything you'd like to say. I have a couple of slides that I wanted to share with you today, focusing on this concept of buy-in and accountability. One of the things that I've heard ever since I started doing stuff with everybody in the beginning, 2020, all the CSC clients, is so many team members struggle to gain real buy-in from their people in a complete way. There may be certain things that the people have no problem kind of going along with, but other times bosses are really like struggling to get somebody to, let's say, manage the CRM effectively, or let's say increase the number of hours we're meeting per week, or something like that, something that they feel really is beneficial to the team and the team's functioning or the clients. But some of their folks, they say they go rogue and they just don't want to agree to certain things. And so Chirag asked me to talk a little bit about my perspective on gaining buy-in from people and maintaining accountability. So I have a few slides I'll share with you, probably a few more than we need for this discussion, but I wanted to throw them in there because they could hopefully be a reference point for you afterwards. I hope that there's one thing that you'll take out of the conversation today that you can begin applying on the team right away. So I pull these up. Okay. In thinking about buy-in and accountability, we want to make sure, first of all, that we recognize that they're not the same thing. In fact, there's a couple of things that we want to think about their relationship to each other. You can see the slides, right? Okay, good. Okay, so two things. When we're talking about buy-in and accountability, we want to make sure that we're recognizing that buy-in is not accountability. There's two separate things, and there's no guarantee that if you have one, you're absolutely going to have the other. In fact, you can have buy-in but no accountability. But you can't have accountability without buy-in. For a person to choose to be accountable for their actions and for the outcomes of their actions, they have to have a certain willingness to participate, a certain willingness to play the game, a certain willingness to be in it. And so buy-in is a precursor to accountability. So if you say some of my people are not accountable, what you're actually saying is some of them are not completely bought in. And what's common is that they're bought into one aspect or another, but they're not bought into the whole thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so we want to aim for buy-in first. And if we can truly gain buy-in, then the accountability theoretically should be there. And normally, in most cases, it is. Second thing to think about is we often, when we think about, getting buy-in for something, we think of a request that we have of somebody and we want to present it to them in the way that they're going to say, yeah, I'm in. And sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not. And when we think about how can we be successful, we want to phrase it the right way. And we want to think of the right timing and, when should I bring this up? Because I know I'm asking an extra burden of them or something like that. But we have to recognize that there is probably no such thing as a magical statement that we can use to give to somebody and they'll always say yes no matter what. And I've coached people for 20 years and everybody wants to solve the same problem. How can I say something to somebody so that they'll say, yes, okay, I'm in, boss? And the reality is there is no magic phrase. And the reason there's no magic phrase is because there's a million different situations. None of them are the same as any other. And you're dealing with a million different people. None of them are the same as any other. If there were some magical phrase that you could say, this will be good because, and everyone says, oh, I get it, I'm in. If we already knew what that was, everybody would be doing it and everybody would have buy-in, everybody would have accountability. Of course, most of us, 98% of the teams, don't really have the accountability or buy-in that we're looking for. And so if buy-in doesn't come from some magical statement that we could, dredge up from somewhere or some guru can pass, some kind of a magical statement to us, of course, there are certain phrasings and timings and things like that that are important. But if it can't come from there as a guarantee, where does it come from? Well, here's where the guarantee is. It's not in how you share what it is you're sharing at the moment. It's actually what's happened between you and that individual all the way up to that particular moment in time. That's where the bulk of the success or failure comes from. Buy-in is really about trust, respect. It's built over time. And when a person chooses to say yes, what they're saying yes to is not just that request in the moment, they're saying yes to everything that they've experienced from you in the past. You could be the worst particular team leader in the world, and you could be giving someone a perfectly reasonable request, and they might say no. And the reason that they would say no is because of this long history of what they've had with you. On the other hand, the opposite is also true. You could have had a fantastic collaborative relationship with someone for months and months and months and years and years and years, and they know that every minute spent with you is a blessing in their life. You could ask them the highest need that you have, the biggest, toughest ask that you could imagine. And they're much more likely to say yes to it. Not because they want to take on something that's going to take a lot of their time and effort, but because of this long experience that they've had with you. You build up that credit, in a sense, over the long term. And if the credit that they're experiencing from you is some version of respect for them, trust in them, clarity of the circumstances of whatever you're talking about, we'll talk about more of that in a minute, and value in the relationship to them from their point of view, then you're boosting your chances of getting the buy-in by 98%. And so you have to think about, if you want somebody to say yes to something on October 30th, my question for you as a coach is, what are you doing today? And what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing the day after that? And so what I hope is that you'll bring a little more awareness to how you're showing up with intention today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, all the way through. In other words, what is the experience you are trying to create for the people who work with you? This is where I make a distinction between what I call the internal clients and external clients. It's very easy for people to say, I'll do anything for my clients. And I see agents doing that all the time. Successful Compass agents do that every single day. They go above and beyond for their clients. That is people buying and selling houses. But those aren't just the only clients that a team leader serves. Those are what I call the external clients. Your internal clients are the people who work for you and with you. And the question there is, are you really willing to go above and beyond with them? Or is it a very different attitude or mindset, like, hey, my way or the highway? It's my team. See my name on the door? If you like it, stick around. If you don't like it, hit the road, Jack. That's a very different kind of an attitude. And so if you think about people and you break up everybody that you work with into those two categories, external clients and internal clients, then you might think a little bit differently about some of it. So what are the things that you need to focus on when you're thinking about creating or trying to create conditions for buy-in? Well, there's tons of them actually, but today I'm just going to highlight 3 of them because it's a little bit more bite-sized, and hopefully one of these things is something that you can kind of actualize or take some action on. First, you need to have clear agreement on what the team goals and what the individual goals are. And we'll go through each of these 3 in the next few minutes, so don't worry about it. But first thing you need to be clear about is, what are our goals? Because if you can't be in clear agreement on what the goals are, you're never going to get buy-in as regarding the actions that are needed to take them. Right? And so there's the what and there's the how, right? The how is like the everyday stuff. This is how we do this. This is how we do that. This is how often we have meetings. This is how we keep up business tracker. This is how we, greet clients. This is how we do pitches. All the how stuff always is a reflection of, or it's downstream from the what. Does that make sense? The what is the goals or the outcomes or the intended, objectives. And so you need to be on the same page as far as that stuff goes, especially for the big stuff. Like, what are we trying to do here this year and why? And then let's talk about how. Second, you need to tap intrinsic motivation. There's extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. We'll talk about that in just a minute. You want to be focusing on intrinsic motivation. Finally, daily service value creation. In what ways are you creating value for your internal clients on a daily basis? We'll talk about that. So let's go through each of these a little bit. First, team and individual goals. On most teams, there's an overall team goal and there's some set of individual team goals. Obviously, it's different from team to team to team, but there's some version of that typically. We may have 50 million in sales or 100 million in sales or serve 39 clients this year, whatever it is. And there's some kind of breakdown perhaps among various people on the team. When you think about that, you need to think about, first of all, what are the overall team goals? And is everybody on the same page? Are they aware of that? In other words, if I went to your team members, Daniel or Lori, and I interviewed every one of them individually, separately, and I gave them a piece of paper and I said, write down the second half of the sentence. Our current team goals in priority order are. Would they all say the same thing? Would they all write down the same words? If so, you're aligned. If not, you're not. You're on the same team, but you're not thinking of the team in the same way. Imagine if somebody thinks, like, let's say a coach of a basketball team. The coach's goal is, we want to win the whole NCAA college basketball championship. But some of the players on the team, they don't really care about that. They just want to win their league because their team hasn't been the winner of their league in 25 years. And let's say some other people on the team, they don't even care about winning the league because they've had a losing record for the last 9 years. They just want to have a winning record. They just want to go 14-13 this year. Imagine how differently they would approach all the work that they have to do as a team if some people on the team think winning 14 games is enough. Other people say winning the league championship is enough. And for the coach, it's win the whole NCAA national tournament. Totally different planet, even though they're on the same team. And I mention this because I've seen team after team after team after team after team at Compass that's in this situation. The team leader thinks everybody understands the goals in the same way, but they don't. And therefore their buy-in, their commitment, the very value that they place on different actions within their kind of daily activities is naturally different because their goals are different. Second, of course, is what are your personal goals? That is not yours yourself, but I mean your own teammates. What are your teammates' goals? Do you know what they are? If I were to ask you right now to run down everybody on your team who's a salesperson and ask them, if I were to ask you, what are their sales goals for this year? Could you answer that? And for everybody who's not a salesperson, what are their goals for this year? Do they have any? Are they trying to learn something? Are they trying to grow their skills? Are they trying to get somewhere in their professional life or their life overall? Are you aware of that? This stuff is what matters for getting buy-in, right? As I said before, the relationship that you have over a long period of time is what translates largely, most largely, to that yes or no at the last minute. And finally, my personal goals. There's no reason why people on your team can't understand what your personal goals are. Maybe you have sales goals. Maybe you have team growth goals. Maybe you're just trying to hold on because it's a bad market right now. All that's perfectly fine. But there needs to be some kind of a sharing, a common understanding of what our goals are. Because every conversation afterwards should have some relationship to that. Right? There's all the what first, and then comes the how. So that's about understanding goals. You need to have clarity and alignment, at least around what the goals are. Then you can begin to have a conversation about different ways you might get there. Second, speaking to people's intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the motivation that's already inside those individuals. Extrinsic motivation is anything outside of them. And this is where I see a lot of team leaders go wrong. A lot of team leaders speak from a place of extrinsic motivation, and it essentially goes like this. I'm the boss, I have authority, you don't, so I get to tell you what to do, and you have to like it or lump it. I can't tell you how many leaders end up in that place and how frequently, and it's really too bad because nobody wants to be on the receiving end of that. I'm sure you don't. And so if you want to gain buy-in for somebody on October 31st, you need to be thinking about how are you relating with them right now. And certainly you want to be speaking to, not just now, but all the time, their intrinsic motivation. What are people motivated about? Well, there's millions of things, but they can be boiled down into 4 general buckets here. When you look at human beings, they generally display some kind of combination of these particular things. Some people are very interested in growth, or let's say everyone's interested in growth at one time or another, perhaps in their life. This is about personal learning, personal mastery, growing one's capabilities, and there's a real satisfaction and joy and excitement in being able to do that. Community is about being part of something bigger than yourself. Everybody wants to work on a good team to some degree. Not everybody wants to be in the middle of a highly collaborative process. Some people like a little more independence, but people like to work on a team that works well. Or they like to be in a family environment, or they like to be in have a respectful culture or collaborative culture on a team that they work on. They highly value that experience of doing whatever it is they do together with others. This doesn't apply to everybody, of course, but some people, that's their primary interest, is to be a part of something that they feel really good about the people that they work with. Third is contribution or service. That is, many people want to make a material contribution to the world around them, something that they feel is valuable in the world, and that gives their life meaning, joy, happiness, fulfillment. And of course, that's a factor for many of us who are in the sales business or the service business. We simply want to do something good that somebody else enjoys. And when that person comes up to you afterwards and says, "Thank you, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I never would have gotten here without your help," that's worth more than the commission itself for some people. And finally, there's money. Tons of people in the sales field motivated by money, nothing wrong with that. So you need to understand, and people on your team, which of these things are number one. If I were to ask you for each person on your team, which person A, which one of these 4 is really uppermost in that person's mind? Which one drives that person more than any other? And if so, how are you responding to that? And can you do that for everybody? So how could it look? Well, it could look in terms of everyday behaviors or everyday messaging or connecting or relating, something like this. Somebody who's interested in growth. If you were to say, George, I know how important it is for you to learn how to sell. Have you ever said something like that to one of your team members? If you have somebody who's interested, maybe he or she is new to the field, or maybe they used to sell in a small town and now they're in a big city and things are different, or maybe they've moved from one state to another state and they really want to learn how things are done here because some states are really different from others. To simply acknowledge that I understand that what matters to you is learning and I'm going to do something to help you learn is one of the greatest gifts that you can offer anybody if that's what they care about. Similarly, if you were to say to your team, it's important to me that everyone here feels like part of a family. If that's part of your culture and everyone on your team you know values community, they could not hear anything better from you than that statement. It's important to me that everyone here feels like part of a family. You're speaking to something that they are intrinsically motivated about. And it's a mile and a half or more away from my way or the highway. Similarly, for somebody who really cares about contribution and service, we have 2 new things we'll start doing that will give our clients a level of service they simply can't get anywhere else. For people who value service and contribution more than anything else, that's about the best thing you could possibly hear. I'm on a team where we're doing something that nobody else does, that nobody else could do, that's going to give our clients an experience that nobody else on the planet gets. That's something to feel excited about, intrinsic motivation. And finally, maybe for somebody who's motivated by money, Helen, my goal is to support you to achieve your goal of 200,000 in GCI this year. So you can see if you understand what the primary motivator or the intrinsic motivation is for each person on your team, it's quite important for you to connect to that, to display to your team that you are on the same page with them, that it matters to you, and that you're going to do something to help them experience what it is they want to experience. This is what we mean by speaking to intrinsic motivation. So we've talked about goals, talked about intrinsic motivation. Let's talk just a little bit about service. If you want buy-in, if you're on this call and you're saying, you know what, I want buy-in from my team, I want real buy-in from my team, then you simply need to answer this one question. Who serves whom? A very simple question, and it relates to what I said before. What is your relation vis-a-vis the person that you're working with? Does that person work with you? Does that person work for you? Are you going to lean on authority and position in order to compel someone to do something that you want done because you think the team needs it or it's good for the team? And how would they respond to that as opposed to someone being, let's say, what we call a servant leader? If you ever look up servant leadership, it's, for you, Lori, who's been doing some reading, you might look up servant leadership. Robert Greenleaf would be one person that you could read. Servant leadership and the Greenleaf Center, he started was one of the guys who really kind of jumped on this concept of service leadership, but many others have. The idea of a servant leader is simply someone who, as I was saying before, pretty much like being the servant to your internal clients. If you're willing to be that servant to your external clients, how can you apply that same ethos or mindset to your internal clients? How can you see yourself not as the person who's on top of everybody and is going to lean on your position and your authority and the name on the door and your wealth or whatever else, your position in the community, to really force somebody to do something you want done because of those external circumstances, but really see yourself as someone who serves those who are underneath you so that they can do what they need to do. That's what we're talking about here. So it could be something as simple as, how can I help? When was the last time you said that to one of your team members? If you're not saying that regularly, you're missing an opportunity. Because people remember. They remember when you came up to them and said, I'm willing to dedicate a few minutes of my busy and important life to your needs, not my own. Or how about this one? You've been working so hard this week. Why don't you take tomorrow off? I'll cover 28 Maple for you. I don't know if you guys have any marketing people or you have a transaction coordinator or somebody like that on your team. Everybody would like a day off or everybody would like a half day off. Do they ever get it? Do you ever recognize that they're actually working hard or maybe they have something going on in their life right now that's a little bit overwhelming for them? Of course, if somebody dies in their family, you give them time off. But short of that, Maybe they're struggling with a kid in school, or maybe some health, the health issue with their parents or something like that. What can you do that serves them, that gives them value in their life at that moment in time? It's always the question in sales, of course. How can I add value to that person's life right at this moment, given what that person is facing? It applies absolutely just as much to your internal clients. Or how about, would it help if I delivered X for you? Right? That's like thinking, okay, what does this person have on his or her plate this particular day? What is it that needs to get accomplished? And is there something that I can do to lighten the load even a tiny bit? And so having this attitude as a servant leader and following through on that by offering value or creating value for that person on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be every day, but every week, when they know that you are absolutely committed to their success, eventually you're going to get that buy-in from them. You're going to get that yes. They can't resist it forever. And if they do resist it forever, they shouldn't be on your team, right? Eventually you want somebody who recognizes your commitment to them and that they're going to respond by making the commitment that you want or need for the team as well. And so this kind of approach of being a servant leader can be summed up in a famous quote from Zig Ziglar. Anybody heard of Zig Ziglar? Zig Ziglar is kind of a speaker, has done tons of sales stuff over the years, speaks at a lot of, for 50 years, he was speaking at all kinds of events. And he had a very simple kind of philosophy in life. If you want to get what you want in your life, it's very easy. You can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want in their lives. So let me ask Lori and Daniel, what is it that pops up into your mind foremost from the conversation today? What stands out, or what is it that you want to think a little more about or operationalize?
I think the intrinsic motivation. I mean, I think too much about our team's goals and not enough about the individuals on the team at times in terms of their growth. I mean, there are times that I'll ask, because I do ask my team members to bring business to the team.
Yeah.
Probably not as lofty goals as some other teams, but we're in a hard market. It's tough. And so I don't always think about how they could feel more of the community because they're a little younger on my team,
Yep.
and what things that they could do. I think they kind of get caught up a bit themselves and not really understanding. They're so focused on just bringing a transaction to the team that sometimes they're not looking at I should say, like the bigger picture and the long game. Look, well, how could I
Yep.
meet more people to bring more business? So trying to tap into that with them a little more.
Yep.
I think so. That
Great.
was very helpful. Thank you.
Good. So think about each person individually and just ask yourself, out of those 4 categories, what do I think person A values the most? What do I think person B values the most? What do I think person C values the most? And then test your assumptions a little bit. Chances are, if you think of all the comments that they've made to you since they've been working with you, they've revealed a lot about what
Right.
matters to them. And if somebody says, gosh, I'm so thrilled to be a part of this team, chances are they're talking about community, right? They
Yeah.
want to be a part of something. Or if they say, man, thanks for sharing that with me. I'm so glad to finally master this. That's a hint that they value, learning and growth.
Learning. Right.
Right. Of course, you can have a conversation with them. You can put those 4 words up on the board and you can say, let's play a game. What do you guys think Susan values the most? And everybody calls it out. And they say, Susan, is that right? Or what would you say, Susan? And then you say, George, what do you think? What does everybody think George values the most? Right? You could do it that way. Or you could just ask everybody to think about it. You could say, here are 4 things that are kind of primary human motivators. And I'm just curious to have you guys think about it. Let me talk about each one a little bit. And then when I meet with you one-on-one in the next week or so, I want to talk with you a little bit more in depth about what's most important to you and see what happens.
Great.
If you can understand just the number 1 top motivator, and remember, it's not just one, it's not that simple. We're probably motivated by some combination of those things. But if you can get clear about what number 1 is and address that, you're well on your way. How about you, Daniel? Something to add?
So I think that in part of the buy-in process, we talk about what our team goals are. I don't typically tell them what my goals are. never really thought to do that. So I would say
Mhm.
maybe that is something just to be a little bit more transparent
Mhm.
about, of this chunk that we're goaled as a team, this is the chunk that I'm hoping to do. And I also don't have them share with each other what their goals are because they're at
Mhm.
different points in their
Right.
journey. So,
Yep.
some do more business than others, and um, I am possibly in the same boat as Lori, where a lot of my team members are younger. Uh,
Yep.
they're a little sensitive at times, so
Yep.
I don't like to put them against each other, or
Yep.
okay, this person did this much this month, but you only
Right.
did this much. So sometimes I try to not have that information shared with them,
Yep.
because I feel like sometimes their feelings get in the way.
I
Um,
agree. Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't advocate that. Correct. I don't advocate that. And I'm not saying that the individual goals should be shared in any way. When I
Okay.
suggest, here are my goals, what are your goals? That's a one-on-one conversation with each
Okay.
person.
Yeah. The other thing that I did really like, and I like that you pointed it out, was that servant leadership. So before I was at Compass, I was at a boutique brokerage. We were about 30 people, and there was just the constant reminder from our broker. He was a non-competing broker, but just you know, I take a portion of the commissions. I work for you. What do
Mhm.
you need from me? And I feel like that is something that where our market is sometimes challenging, but it's also really fast moving. Sometimes
Mhm.
I think I do forget to bring that to my team that, as a part of the team, I do take a portion of the commissions. What, what are you not getting from me? What can I do to make your life easier?
Right.
Because sometimes I just feel at the end of the day, I don't have that extra time. Uh,
Understood.
but I
Sure.
think that it's something that I need to look back and see how I can incorporate that into our dynamic.
I really
Great.
like that, Daniel. What are you not getting? Because oftentimes I'll phrase it as, what else can I do to help? Or
Right.
where some areas that, I can assist you, but what are you not getting from me is a different way to look at it. And sometimes I think in my team that they have been very thankful to me, like, thank you. I'm so glad to be part of this team because I'm getting some business where some other teams aren't doing as well, or there's new agents and there's no business, but I think they're almost afraid to say something.
Yep.
So I like that is a very kind of welcoming way to say it's okay to say, like, hey, this isn't as good as it should be, or I need more help here, or you need to spend more time. Because I think, Daniel, you said it well. We move so fast sometimes, and it's so
Right.
centered on the client need, client need, client
Yep.
need, right? So that's great.
Yeah.
I like that.
Great. Well, glad to have the conversation with everyone today. I'll be back here again next Tuesday, where we'll be talking about using emotional intelligence
Ooh,
to
nice.
be more effective in how you relate with others. So have a great
Awesome.
week, everybody. We'll see you
Thank you,
next Tuesday.
David.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.